Hey, what's up? Welcome to DGen Ed. That's degenerative education, meaning none of this is financial advice. Just me having fun looking at charts, like the chart behind me, which is of Plug Power, ticker symbol PLUG. And so I am recording this on Wednesday, October 8th during market hours. I had intended to put out this video before market open, but I had stayed up late doing an AMC video. And so, yeah, this is a little bit late, and I do have to get outside working before streaming this afternoon at 1:30 p.m. Eastern for half an hour, trying to do that every day moving forward this week. Next week, it will be after hours updates. But, I will follow up on Plug in that if you like. And yeah, that's actually the reason why I'm doing this video on Plug. I've been getting some requests on it and it's been performing really well. So, congrats to all of you guys who have held this. I've definitely been wrong on some of my calls on Plug in the past. And, I ended up stepping away for a little while. And yeah, I just kind of want to revisit it and look at some of the stuff I've been talking about, those streams. Basically, what you can see here as price does come down a little bit during market hours around 377. And actually, I'm going to pause before diving into the chart. I just kind of wanted to give a background of an updated thesis on Plug. One is that a while ago, I remember Trump saying something along the lines of, whether you like Trump or not, doesn't matter, but him saying something along the lines of hydrogen fuel cells. If you see, a car accident from one of those, you're not looking for, the body in the car on the street. You're looking for it, up in the tree or something. And that made me think, well, there's not such a great sentiment around that. And that was probably, around this time back in, mid 2025. Maybe it was actually earlier than that, maybe over here. But what we're seeing now is, basically the need for energy for AI infrastructure, data centers, all of that. And a lot of that, I think, has focused on, nuclear or other areas of energy. And I think Plug Power could actually be a very great beneficiary of that. And I think that we've seen that reflected in the price. So I feel like that there's a really strong case for Plug to just, continue going higher. I think that this could be sustainable into 2026. So generally, not looking at the daily or, a lower time frame, just bigger picture perspective, I think things could be looking really good for Plug. With that being said, I think one of my first streams that got a lot of views on this channel was a Plug Power earnings call. And because of that, got a lot more subscribers. I have kind of an emotional attachment to it. And because of that, I think it's probably best for me. I'll cover Plug, but I am probably not going to trade it because of that, because I get tied up in the emotions. Like I said at the beginning of this, I had just done an AMC video. And I don't want to do that. I just want to give my non-biased perspective because I think it's valuable for you guys and I enjoy going over the charts. And so anyways, getting back to the chart, still price is around 377, now at 375, coming down a little bit today. It looks like I've got that yellow line up there that's kind of blocking it. So I'm just going to remove that. But so far on the day, down about 3.1%, again at 375 right now. And that was a gap down from yesterday's close on Tuesday, October 7th at a price of 387. And yeah, so it does look like maybe we put in a top there, and that high on Monday, October 6th, was at 458. And coincidentally, I had no idea because I think I drew this either probably during the day, during the stream on Monday, or maybe it was during Ticker Request Live on Sunday. So before this candle was complete, I had suggested that price could be coming up to here, which coincidentally, look at where the cursor's at, 458. And I had made this doodle, this path, suggesting that, maybe this could take some time, but I was really just trying to space it out to give the visual that, in the shorter time frame, I thought price could be going approximately up to like 458, and that ended up being the high, and then maybe coming back down to around 332. Also, with that yellow line there, we do have some gaps over here that could be getting filled, but realistically, I don't think all of these gaps will be getting filled. So where could I see price coming down to if it does come down? Generally, and I forgot to mention this, I think things are looking pretty bullish. The thing I wanted to mention is this news press release from today, October 8th. When I saw this, I was initially thinking, oh, there's going to be dilution or something. They're raising capital with price being higher. But, I don't really understand all this stuff. This is not my interest, I would say. But from this press release, which I will include a link to in the description of the video so you can read more about it if you like. But it says that Plug Power has successfully raised $370 million, and this is from warrant inducement transaction with the potential to receive an additional $1.4 billion in gross proceeds if new warrants are fully exercised. And so my understanding of this, very limited understanding, is that, capital was raised, but not by dilution or anything like that. And this was done by the private investors or the institutional investors in Plug. Yes, see, warrant exercise by existing institutional investor improves Plug Power's financial position and accelerates its growth initiatives. So I think that this is really good news, and there might have been, like the first reaction was not so good, the gap down. And now we're moving up towards filling that gap. And we actually did fill the gap, I believe. So far, the high on the 8th was at a price of 361. And the close yesterday was at 387. So actually, there's still... Oh, no, the high today, sorry, I misread that. I was reading the low, 361. The high so far today was 387. And so that does, to the penny, fill that gap. But anyways, with that being said... Do I think it's going to come down to 332? Do I think it's going to come down to 3 or so? I believe I talked about that in one of my streams. You can see that over here, the 332 does correspond with the high here from January 7th of earlier this year of 2025. And so that was notable resistance in the past. We kind of nearly got up to it here and then kind of gapped above that level over here. I could see us pulling back to that, finding that as support. However, I think that this could be just the simple fact that oftentimes, whenever there are big moves to the upside, I tend to be very cautious about pullbacks, that I think a pullback could happen. I think it definitely could. But what we're seeing with this, with that good news, the financials looking good, thinking that Plug could be a pretty important or at least a component of the revitalization, the improved integrity of the U.S.'s energy infrastructure for AI data centers, all of that. I think, just a lot of stuff looks really good. So if one was to be waiting for, I believe I said in a stream 290, and that might actually be, what was the close over here on October 2nd? The close was 283. So yeah, it could be coming down to around 290. But at the same time, if one is waiting to load the boat at 3 at 290, maybe that doesn't happen. And maybe one is left not holding the bag, and left behind. Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to put that out there because I do tend to be a little more, I'm going to wait for the pullback and I'm not going to budge on that, and then I get left behind. But yeah, looking at this, what I have drawn up here, this is a Fibonacci retracement from this. So what I might do is I'm actually just going to adjust that, and I might actually do it to the penny over here. So actually, let's see about that. So I'm just going to adjust this here. You can see how I do this in TradingView if you're not too familiar with it. This is at least an example that could potentially be helpful. So it looks like the low for that day was 141, and then the high, I'm just lining up the cursor with the candle that had the high, and then I'm reading the data up here. So the high right there for this day was 458. And I had already talked about that, so I should know that. But so we have that here, and then for the style of this, I have all of these fib levels. I like the colors, it just helps me out. But what we can see from this move is actually that move. Oh, sorry. I did not want to do it from this high. I wanted to do it from this high over here. I wanted to get it lined up with the low here, and then maybe we could see where the next retracement might be. So anyways, the high over here was 316. So I'm going to adjust that here. 316, we've got that, that's good. And because we can see that it pulled back to the 50% retracement, like that green line, kind of corresponding with plugs, so that's cool. I'm just going to remove all of the other levels. So we just have that one line there. So that looks fine. It's clean. I'm going to lock it in place. We have that for reference. And then so now what I'm going to do is do the exact same thing, just a Fibonacci retracement, going from the low over here, which was 219, both of those days. So I might just do it from here so it's a little bit not as wide. And then going up here, I'm just going to line it up with that top, which by now I should know, maybe I could just do it to my drawing over here, is 458. So I'm going to lock that in place. And with that, we have the 50% retracement that does seem to line up pretty nicely with the highs from January of 2025 at 332. Maybe we go lower though. I think that, history tends to repeat or tends to rhyme, not repeat. And so maybe we do a plus or minus levels above or below that 50% where this could feasibly be going to. So just, going back to the settings, we've just got the 50% there. So I might add the 382, which, we tested today and we are now above. The 382 is at $3.66. So it's quite possible the bottom is in there before the next move higher. And then I'm also going to add the 618. So we do have a level below the 50% retracement, and that would suggest a price of around 310. That also kind of makes me think that there's some psychology there as well, with people maybe wanting to load the boat at 3 and their orders not getting filled or nearly getting there, and then they get left behind. Their orders don't get filled. Even if it does come down to 3, I've had this happen multiple times, whether it's in crypto or in stocks, where I have a limit order, let's say at 310, price comes down to 310, but the order doesn't get filled and it goes up. So, always got to factor that in as well. And so maybe 310's like, a nice compromise. Other ways to, get into or establish positions is by, like, let's say I think 100% price is coming down to $3, if not lower. And we can actually see where that lines up with the 786 here. The 786 is actually at 27. I think that's a little extreme. I don't think it's going to go that low. So I'm going to remove that. And so we've got these levels here. And so one way to, let's say buy the dip, if it does pull back to 310, or maybe it goes to, it doesn't go to 3. Yeah, so if it goes to 310, but I think it's going to go to 3. I could, let's say if I want to have 100% of a position, maybe around the 382, right around current price, 370, I could, buy 10% or 20% of that position. At the 50% retracement around 340, 330, somewhere around there, I could buy another 10, 20%, maybe 25% each of these levels. But then once it comes down to 310, get that last second to last 25%. And then if it comes down to 3, or maybe, to average that between the 310 and maybe 290, if it comes down to there, do that third 25%. So you got, let's say, just to keep it simple, at the 382, 25%, at the 50%, 25%, at the 618, 25%. But then it's like, well, I think it's going to come down to 3, but maybe we sweep that. It comes down to 290, and then I get the last 25% there. Or, 50% and divide the other 50% up against these levels. I don't know. Whatever works for you. But I think that could be a nice way to kind of, buy the dip and with less risk of being left behind. Because, yeah, I think that plug's looking really good. And, I had talked about this doodle kind of corresponding with, the timeline over here more. I just really extended it out to have that more visual representation. But it's quite possible we could be, consolidating here for months. And that would just be, potentially, in my view, a really nice bull flag for the next leg higher. So we can look at that in a second. But before I do that, I did just also want to note some things that with these moves higher, we do see volume moving higher. And so I am still working on my volume analysis, but what we're seeing is we're seeing more effort, more volume, and with that greater effort, we're seeing a greater result. Prices going higher. So generally, I think this looks good. But I also think that looking at the RSI down here, it's potentially getting to be exhausted. So over here on Monday, on October 6th, RSI was at 85.07. Over here on Monday, September 22nd, RSI was at 85.50. So both of those are, in the overbought territory. Also currently right now, it's at 72.08. That's above 70. And so that's going to be in the overbought territory. So maybe there's some cooling off that's needed to happen. But again, maybe it doesn't come down to 3. So those are some levels that I think could potentially be useful. And then also I did want to point out I have a Fibonacci extension here that's just coming over to the like retracement tool, the Fibonacci tool, and you just go to trend-based Fib extensions. And so I'll draw another one of those in a minute to see where this could be going beyond. But basically what you do with that is go from the low here to the high, and then with that retracement, wherever that bottom was, you would get a move that's a similar distance or the same distance from the bottom to the top there, but then just moving that from the bottom over here. And so that is that 100% Fibonacci extension. Price could go higher, as it did, but price could also not get that far too. And you can also do additional levels to that. So if I actually pull up the settings tool, I don't like to have too many on the fib, on the extension. Let's see, the style is what I want. And actually, nope, this is a trend line. I was like, why, what's going on here? So I'm gonna click on this. So we do have that fib extension there. And if we do look at this, the coordinates, I just have the 1 or the 100% and the 1618 or the 161.8% move to the upside, because I don't think I need any more clutter than that. I think a 100% move is pretty reasonable. And to be honest, maybe it's good to have the 786 on there as well. So I'll throw that up there. But, and actually I might not do that for this one because we already did get this move up here to the 100%, but in the next one, I might include that 786. But yeah, that was the 100%, around $4. We hit a high of 458 as I've talked about. And we do have the 1618 up here around 5. And so we could be getting there, but for this move, we didn't. So that's not really that useful of a level, as you can tell. But, depending on where we pull back to, we can do the exact same thing coming from the lows over here up to the high. And then, I can do this, wherever. So I'm just going to pull it back down to here. Let's say we pull back to that green line, just hypothetically, and price is, that's a full retracement, so price isn't really going any higher. But if I adjust actually, I'm not going to do it like that. I'm going to adjust the axis by taking a step back. And with that one that I had previously drawn, that, let's see, lower fib extension, I'm just going to remove that 1618 just because we only got to the first one there at around $4, nearly getting to, 5, but not quite there. But anyways, with this one that I just drew, it's got the 1 and the 1618 on there. And I might also add, as I had mentioned, the 786. So that's another level that we could be bumping our heads at on this next move if it does pull back lower. Sorry, I keep going back and forth, but I just need to have this in the right frame. And actually, it might be good for me to, got that there. The y-axis is not going to change, but I can zoom in on this time frame. So this might be a little bit more useful for us. So with that, I've done this basically a full retracement, which I don't think is going to happen. As I move this up, we can see those lines move up because it's the same distance here, just taken from a different low. And so I don't think the bottom's in necessarily, but maybe it is. If it is, I'm going to have to adjust the y-axis again and maybe just bring it down like this. We can see that 100% move will be bringing price to around $6. But maybe on this next move, it doesn't go all the way up to or doesn't go past to get a fill at the 100%. And so maybe it just goes to the 786, and that's around 550. And so I could see that happening. But also, maybe we do come a little bit lower than we're at right now. I think that's reasonable. Maybe we come down to that yellow line corresponding with the prior high from, over here. And let's see, that would then be suggesting the 786 around 520, the 100% around 571. So not quite getting to $6. So this makes me think we could be seeing a move from where we're currently at around, 366 right here is the number. And we could be seeing a move up to around 5. I think that seems pretty reasonable with getting a fill there. I think this line going across, I think that's probably going to be some significant resistance and or support. So if one does trim at 5, I think one would have the opportunity to buy back those shares, maybe a little bit lower, or back at 5 if it seems to like things are going to continue. But yeah, and then also I can adjust this y-axis a little bit more so we can see that 1618, and even with the more conservative pullback to 332. That would be suggesting a 1618 price around $7. Here it's a 718. And, let's even be a little bit more conservative if it does pull back more, like let's say to around $3. Then, the 786 would be at around 487. The 100% would be around 538. And the 1618 would be around 685. And so in my view, wherever plug pulls back to, I think $5 seems like a pretty reasonable target. I think we could be even seeing maybe a blow-off move to around 6 or 7. But I think following that, we'd probably be pulling back to around $5, 490 to see that as support before we can consolidate more and then continue higher. There are definitely levels up here. $12, $10, double digits, whatnot, that plug could be seeing. And so this is not something that I plan on participating in, but I think it's interesting. I appreciate you guys who view the channel. And so, I'd like to follow up on this if you guys are interested. And I also do want to very briefly just go over some options data. So this is the net call and put premium. Not going to dive into this too much, but what we can see is net call premium is up today by about $215,000. That's going to change over the course of the day. Earlier, it was up around $488,000, but that is pulling back some as price in yellow is pulling back. Net call premium is green there, by the way. Net put premium is down on the day. That's going to be the red line, and that's down by about $550,000 right now. But that, of course, is going to be changing. And so that would be suggesting buying of calls with the green line going up, selling of puts, red line going down. So that would be, overall bullish. And if we do look at the bear bull slider here just above my head, it does look like so far today it is majority on the bullish side. And we can also go back over the past 30 days to see all of this data. And really there was not too much going on in the past with plug. It started to wake up. The options data looks a little more interesting. We did see over here spike in call premium, net call premium, I should say, by about $3.27 million. Over here, we saw another spike that was around $4.09 million. But then we did see a pretty big sell-off, and that could just be taking profits. In the yellow, that's the stock price. As price goes up, people are buying calls. People are buying calls. As price goes up, they might want to take some profit. So that really, makes some sense. But for that net call premium drop, that came down by, it looks like about $4.75 million. So that does suggest selling of calls, taking some profits. Again, it makes sense. Ups and downs here with the net call premium, whether that's, millions to the upside or, millions to the downside. So I think that there's a lot of excitement in plug. I think that it's, kind of picked up, and you can definitely see that in this data. Really nothing over here, a lot more going on here. And with that being said, interesting to look at insider transactions, what's been going on over here. Just a lot of grants. So it's not necessarily active buying, but just part of, the employment package or whatever, the package for board members, CEOs, whatever. So I imagine this is, nothing to be going on about. And then we can also look over here at the Greeks. It usually takes a second to load. But for plug power for this Friday, and I might actually zoom in on this so you guys can see the table a little bit better. For this Friday, October 10th, max pain is 350. Current price is above that. So that could be serving as like a magnet for it to come down. But at the same time, if price does make a leg up to $4 and so on, that could be triggering another, what I believe in the past was a gamma squeeze or gamma ramp, could lead to a continuation of that, especially with, if we look at October 17th, Max Payne's only $2. That's the monthly contracts for October, so not this Friday, but next Friday. And I don't think, looking at the chart, Plug would have to be coming down to where the cursor is here, $2. I don't see that happening. So what I actually see instead, oops, wrong tab there, sorry. It's Plug, but not the one I wanted to see here. But with Max Payne at $2, I see Max Payne actually going up from there. And or if it doesn't and it's not able to catch up to where the current price is, around 365, I think that's going to lead to a gamma ramp, and this is just going to be pushing higher. So generally, taking a step back here on this and coming back over to the chart, generally, I think it's more likely to be hitting $5 than $3, but at the same time, either way, I'm not, putting any money on it. I'm not going to participate, but I will, do follow-ups if you guys like. So as always, those are just my thoughts. If you found them helpful, make sure you like the video, share your thoughts in the comments down below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, more Plug content. And, thank you all so much for being here. It's been a really interesting journey, and I'm very impressed with Plug, and I'm happy for you guys for, having the conviction, holding on to it and seeing that come around. But yeah, take care, and maybe I'll see you at 1:30 for the market hours update. See you later, guys.